Most of us believe we're living in the most connected era in history. We carry the entire world in our pockets, yet we've never been more blind. We see every headline, every pixel, but we've lost the ability to see the person sitting right across from us. What if the darkness everyone fears in the year 2026 isn't a catastrophe at all? What if it's a necessary reset, a global power down designed to give us CRUA sight back? Because right now the lights are so bright, we can no longer see reality. I used to think the world was like a clock. Something perfectly timed, reliable, and meant to run forever as long as you didn't drop it. We all kind of believe that, don't we? We assume the systems we live in, our banks, our internet, our government, are solid ground. We think if they're still standing today, they'll be standing tomorrow. But lately I've been looking at things differently. I started noticing the noise. You see, there's a law in physics that most of us forget as soon as we leave high school. It's called entropy. It sounds like a big academic word, but it's actually very simple. It just means that in any closed system, things naturally move from order to disorder. Things get messy, always. Think about your own life for a second. Think about your house. If you stop cleaning it, it doesn't just stay the same. It gets dusty. The pipes start to leak. The garden grows over. It takes constant energy just to keep things at a baseline. Now take that idea and apply it to the entire world. Our world is becoming incredibly complex. Think about the layers we've added just in the last 10 years. We have thousands of laws that no one has time to read. We have financial systems so tangled that even the people running them can't explain how they work. We have apps to manage our apps and passwords to protect our passwords. Every time we try to fix a problem, we usually just add another layer of complexity, another wire to the pile. And here's the thing about complexity. It requires energy, a lot of it. I realize that we've reached a point where we are spending almost all our energy just trying to keep the old wires from sparking. We aren't building anything new anymore. We're just patching the leaks. In physics, when a system gets this noisy, when it's this full of errors and friction, it eventually reaches a tipping point. It becomes brittle. It doesn't bend anymore. It just snaps. I used to hear people talk about the year 2026 as if it were a ghost story, a prophecy, something supernatural. But when I look at the math, it feels more like a deadline. It's the year where the noise in our systems finally outweighs the energy we have to fix them. Think of a forest. If you never let the small, natural fires burn, the dead wood just piles up. Year after year, the entropy of that forest increases. The brush gets thicker. The old rot-filled trees stay standing when they should have fallen decades ago. Eventually, you don't just have a forest anymore, you have a tinderbox. And that's where we are right now. We are standing in a forest of dead wood, and we're terrified of a spark. We call it a crisis, but scientists have a different name for it. They call it creative destruction. It's a hard phrase to hear. Destruction sounds like an ending. It sounds like a funeral. But in nature, a forest fire isn't a tragedy. It's a reset. It's the only way the soil can get the nutrients back. It's the only way the sun can reach the floor so new seeds can finally sprout. When people talk about the shaking that's coming to America in 2026, I don't see it as a punishment anymore. I don't think it's a bolt of lightning from a vengeful sky. I think it's a forest fire. I think our systems have become so heavy with noise and rot, with fake values, speculative numbers, and broken promises, that they can no longer support their own weight. The shaking isn't meant to destroy us. It's meant to clear the path. It's meant to burn away the things that aren't real so that the things that actually matter, the things that are unshakable, can finally be seen again. I know that sounds heavy. It's uncomfortable to think about the floor moving under your feet. But once you realize that the shaking is a cleaning process, the fear starts to change. You stop worrying about the old trees falling and you start looking for the seeds. You start asking yourself, when the noise finally stops, what is the one thing in my life that will still be standing? Because we've been relying on these noisy systems for so long that we've forgotten how to stand on our own. We've traded our intuition for algorithms and our neighbors for screens. In 2026, it's just the moment the power cord finally gets too hot to hold. It's the moment the math catches up with the reality. It's not the end of the world. It's just the end of the illusion. And if we want to survive it, we have to stop trying to save the dead wood. We have to start preparing for the reset. I realized something as I sat in the quiet. The real threat in 2026 isn't going to be a shortage of food or a collapse of the power grid. Those are just the external symptoms. The real battle, the one that will actually break people, is going to happen inside the 3 pounds of tissue between our ears. Think about your phone for a second. We think of it as a tool, or maybe a toy, but our brains see it as a pharmacy. Every notification, every like, every 15-second video is a tiny injection of dopamine. It's a chemical reward that tells our brain, this is good, do it again. We've been living on this high-octane digital fuel for so long that we've forgotten what our natural baseline feels like. And this is the hidden variable we aren't talking about. There's a concept in neuroscience called dopamine homeostasis. Your brain is always trying to maintain a balance, like a seesaw. When you scroll through a feed for hours, you are piling weight onto the pleasure side of that seesaw. To keep you from spinning out of control, your brain has to work incredibly hard to push down on the pain side to level things out. It creates a counter pressure to dull the high. Now imagine that 2026 arrives and the screens finally go dark. The pleasure side of the seesaw is suddenly empty, but your brain doesn't realize the party is over. It's still pushing down on the pain side with everything it's got. This is what I call the deficiency valley. It isn't just boredom, it's a neurological crash. I started to visualize what that would look like on a massive scale. Millions of people sitting in their living rooms, staring at gray screens, feeling a physical ache in their chests. It's a withdrawal, just as real and just as painful as coming off a hard drug. Your hands will shake. You'll feel a phantom vibration in your pocket where your phone used to be. You'll feel an irritability that borders on rage, and you won't even know why. The silence won't feel peaceful. It will feel heavy. It will feel like a thick, suffocating fog. In the first few weeks of this Great Interruption, we won't be fighting over resources. We'll be fighting our own chemistry. This is where the behavioral panic starts. When the brain is starved of its digital dopamine, it goes into survival mode. It starts looking for any hit it can find. Anger is a great substitute. Conflict is a great substitute. Outrage provides a massive spike of dopamine, and without the screens to distract us, we might be tempted to find that spike in the people standing right in front of us. I saw this clearly. The 2026 shaking is actually a giant detox. We've been feeding on shadows for so long that we've lost the ability to digest reality. We've used our devices to numb the discomfort of being alone with our thoughts. We've used them to avoid the hard work of building actual physical relationships. And when that anesthesia is pulled away, we are going to feel every bit of the underlying pain we've been ignoring. This is the deficiency valley, the valley where you have to face yourself. I think this is why people will look so lost. They won't know how to talk to their spouses without a screen between them. They won't know how to sit in a room for 10 minutes without checking something. It's a test of reality management. If your entire sense of well-being is tied to a signal coming from a cell tower, then you are the most vulnerable person in the world. But there's a reason for this pain. You can't heal a wound if you're constantly numbing it with ice. You have to let the blood flow back into the area. You have to feel the sting so you know where the damage is. 2026 is the year the anesthesia wears off. It's the year we are forced to realize that we've been starving our souls while we overfed our dopamine receptors. The shaking is meant to break our addiction to the fake so we can finally develop a hunger for the real. It's going to be the most uncomfortable year of our lives. Not because of what's happening in Washington or on Wall Street, but because of what's happening inside our own nervous systems. The question isn't whether the world will change. The question is, can you survive 30 days of silence? Can you handle the weight of your own presence when the noise finally stops? Because if you can't manage your own reality when the screens go dark, you'll be at the mercy of the first person who promises to turn the lights back on. Then the scene shifted in my mind. I know what we've all been taught. We've been fed this idea that humans are just one missed meal away from becoming animals. We've watched the movies. We've seen the stories where the lights go out and the neighbors immediately turn on each other. We've been told that without a strong hand to lead us, without the police or the government or the internet to keep us in line, we would fall into the law of the jungle. It's an assumption we carry around like a heavy, invisible chain. It makes us look at the person in the grocery store with suspicion. It makes us lock our doors and buy more locks. But I realized something while I was looking at that living map of 2026. This assumption? It's a lie. It's a hollow story told by people who are terrified of losing control. There's a term for this in sociology. It's called elite panic. It's the phenomenon where, during a crisis, the people at the top, the leaders, the celebrities, the ones in the big offices, are the ones who actually lose their minds. They assume the public is going to riot, so they focus on control. They focus on fences and guards and restoring order. They see the chaos and they think they are looking at a monster. But when I zoomed in on the houses and the streets, I didn't see a monster. I saw a miracle. I saw a neighborhood in a suburb of Ohio where the power had been out for 3 weeks. I didn't see people fighting over cans of beans. I saw a man dragging a charcoal grill out to his driveway. I saw his neighbor bringing over a bag of frozen meat that was starting to thaw. Pretty soon, there were 6 families on that driveway. They weren't rioting. They were having a cookout. They were talking. They were laughing for the first time in years because they weren't staring at their phones. This is the hidden truth about our species. We are not wired for war. We are wired for cooperation. Think about our ancestors. They didn't survive the Ice Age because they were the strongest or the fastest. They survived because they knew how to share the fire. They survived because they looked after the ones who couldn't walk. Cooperation is our ultimate survival strategy. It's in our DNA. It's a spontaneous paradise that only appears when the artificial structures of our world finally crumble. I watched the hollow structures of power flicker and fade. I saw the big, flashy institutions that usually tell us how to live. They looked so small. They looked like empty theater sets after the actors have gone home. And in their place, something real started to grow. It was a paradise built in hell. I saw people in a city apartment complex who had never even known each other's last names. Now they were organized. One person was the medics because they used to be a nurse. One person was the chef. One person was in charge of the water. They weren't doing it because a law told them to. They were doing it because they needed each other. And in that need, they found a peace that the normal world could never give them. I felt this deep, overwhelming sense of relief. The fear I had been carrying, the fear of my neighbor, the fear of the stranger, it just fell away. It felt like taking off a heavy backpack I had been wearing since I was a child. We've been living in a world of fake connections for so long. We have 5,000 friends on the social media, but no one to help us move a couch. We have leaders who don't know our names. But in 2026, those fake connections are going to snap. And for a moment, it's going to look like the end of the world. But it's not. It's the rise of the human. I saw 3 things happen clearly when the elite panic settled. First, the barriers of class and race just evaporated. When you're both trying to figure out how to keep a child warm, you don't care who the other person voted for. Second, the law of the jungle turned out to be the law of the table. People shared what they had. They didn't hoard, they distributed. And third, the rot was cleaned out. The corruption and the hidden ugliness of the old systems couldn't survive in a world where everyone was looking each other in the eye. It's a turning point in our history. We've been taught to fear the collapse. But what if the collapse is the only thing that can save us? What if the Tham Hoa is actually the Tianzhuang we've been looking for? I realize that the only people who should be afraid of 2026 are the ones who rely on the hollow structures to feel important. But for the rest of us, for the ones who are tired of the noise and the division, 2026 is an invitation. It's the moment we get to stop being consumers and start being neighbors again. The cooperation is already there. It's dormant, like a seed waiting for a fire to clear the brush. Don't believe the lie that you are alone. Don't believe the story that your neighbor is a threat. When the screens go dark, the first thing you're going to see isn't an enemy. It's a mirror. And in that mirror, you're going to see a version of yourself that is stronger, kinder, and more connected than you ever thought possible. I've realized that the most dangerous thing you can do right now is stay in a state of waiting. Waiting for the headlines to change, waiting for the power to flicker, or waiting for someone to tell you it's going to be okay. When we think about the instability of 2026, our first instinct is usually to harden our lives. We think about buying canned food, stockpiling batteries, or maybe even building a bunker if we have the money. It's a survival model based on walls. We assume that if we can just isolate ourselves enough, we can ride out the storm. But I've been looking at a different model. It's an older one, built into the very way our brains are wired. It's not about how thick your walls are. It's about how wide your net is. There's a concept in anthropology called Dunbar's number. It's the idea that the human brain can only really maintain stable, trusting relationships with a limited number of people. But inside that number, there's an even smaller, more critical circle. It's a group of about 5 to 12 people. Researchers call this the minimum survival unit. This is the secret to getting through the year of the mirror. I've seen how the big, centralized systems fail. When a massive bridge collapses, it doesn't matter how strong the individual steel beams were. The whole structure goes down because it's too rigid. It's too dependent on every other piece. But a star network is different. A star network is a small cluster of people who are connected to each other, but independent from the rest of the world. If the global grid goes dark, the cluster keeps glowing. So here is the strategy. Stop looking at the map of the country and start looking at the map of your street. You don't need a bunker, you need a unit. You need 5 to 12 people who you know, who you trust, and who have different skills than you. One person who knows basic first aid. One person who knows how to fix a leaking pipe. One person who knows how to stay calm when everyone else is panicking. I want you to think about this clearly. If the internet went dark tomorrow and your bank account was frozen, who are the 10 people you would walk to? Whose door would you knock on? And more importantly, whose door would open for you? We've been trained to be consumers who rely on a global grid for everything from our food to our sense of purpose. But in 2026, the grid is going to get very, very small. It's going to shrink down to the distance between your front door and your neighbor's porch. The strategy for survival isn't about what you have in your pantry. It's about who you have in your circle. I want to give you 3 concrete things to do this week. First, identify your Dunbar circle. Who are the 12 people you would trust with your life? Second, if you're holding a grudge against any of them, let it go. You can't afford the luxury of resentment when the shaking starts. And third, start sharing a meal together once a week. No phones, no news, just talk. Build the habit of presence before the screens force you to. I'm still recovering from the night my heart stopped. I still feel the cold sometimes, but I'm not afraid of 2026 anymore. Because I know that safety isn't a place you hide. Safety is a person who remembers your name. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken. The big institutions, the massive corporations, the digital idols, they are all going to feel the vibration. But a small unit of 12 people sitting around a simple fire, that is unshakable. My name is Caleb. I've seen what's coming. And I'm telling you, build your network now. Because when the lights go out, the only real currency left will be the trust you've already built. Be ready.